Please adhere to YouTube's selected guidelines before viewing the content of this video. I do not encourage or condone any products, actions, or behaviors shown in this video. All videos are produced in a safe, professional, and controlled environment. Please do not attempt to replicate any actions performed during the video. All actions are performed by professionals.
Alright, so today I'm going to be smoking and reviewing the Crown's Green 100 menthol cigarettes from the United States, which are a pack of budget menthol cigarettes made in North Carolina by ITG, Imperial Tobacco's United States subsidiary. Now, I've actually tried a variety or two from Crown's as a brand previously, and I have been impressed by the quality of them. I have been impressed because Crown's is basically just about a no-name budget cigarette brand. And generally speaking, with no-name budget cigarette brands, you're not going to be expecting anything of any quality. But I have been impressed by these in the past, and I'm curious to find out if I'm going to be impressed by this pack as well. Thank you so much to Mr. Fred Scott for having been kind enough to contribute this pack right here to the channel for me to smoke and make a review all about. Looking forward to giving these a go and looking forward to finding out just how they are for myself for the very first time today. Appreciate the support, my man. Without further ado, let's go ahead and quickly cover the packaging. After that, I'm going to go ahead and get the cellophane off, get the pack all opened up, and I'm going to, well, go over the look, the quality, the feel, and the smell of the cigarettes inside the pack. And once I've done that, I'm going to go ahead and get to smoking and find out just how these really are. And once I've gotten my fill of nicotine, I am then going to give you guys my final thoughts on this pack, and I'm going to give it a rating as well. But first off, as said, we've got to cover the packaging, and we can see it is that of a hard pack with hard corners, and of course, due to the fact that the cigarettes inside this pack are 100 size, it is a longer pack than not. And we can see design-wise, it is pretty basic. We get an overall white background in the middle, and then it kind of stretches around, creating a little bit of a border as well. We can see two green rectangles on the top and the bottom, the actual Crown's logo itself in the center, and a couple other details as well. In my opinion, this is very basic, very simple, and very clean packaging that does a good job of looking budget while not looking too budget. In my opinion, Crown's is trying to be a not rock bottom budget brand of cigarettes, is trying to be a mid-range to maybe slightly above mid-range brand of budget cigarettes. Something in the line of right below L&M and Pall Mall. If I had to guess, at least. I could very well be wrong about that, but that's just my guess. But overall, I think it's a pretty clean look. It's very basic, looks budget, but it's a clean look that is recognizable from a distance, doesn't look bad up close, and I just think this packaging does a pretty decent job as a whole. I'll acknowledge I do think the design on this packaging was thought about just a little bit more so than not. As said, though, we can see there is a white background going all the way around the packaging, and there is the white background in the center right here as well, with the two green rectangles on the top and on the bottom. The one on the bottom is a little bit bigger than the one on the top, and on the one on the top we get a gold design right there. That's just like the Crown's coat of arms or something like that kind of thing. There's like a lion and a horse and something going on in the center right there. This is a budget pack of cigarettes, so it's not too detailed by any means, but there is that gold nonetheless. Below this green rectangle, we can see it says Crown's right there, starting off with big text, getting small in the middle, and then getting big once again. But yeah, just says Crown's right there in gold, no embossment or anything like that. And right below there is a shield. It's made up of a green with a white border and then a gold surrounding that. And in the center there is a crown, hence the name Crown's, or there's a crown because of the name Crown's. I'm not sure which way it goes in all honesty. And then below that, on the other bigger green rectangle, it just says 100s right there in white, and then under that it just says 20 Class A cigarettes, which doesn't really mean much because that's just a tax designation, but budget cigarettes love to put that they're Class A cigarettes on the front of the packaging to make people think that it's a designator for quality, when in fact it's actually just a tax designation based on weight. And yeah, that's all there is going on with the front of the packaging. There's really not much going on. It is a simple, it is a basic, it is a more budget look than not, but it's not a bad look by any means, but it is exceedingly simple, so there's not really much to cover. Taking a look at the back of the packaging, we can see it is exactly the same as the front. There are quite literally no differences at all. Taking a look at the side, we can see we get a white background up here, but green on the sides, which is interesting. It just says 20 Class A cigarettes right there with a little circle and words stretching around the circle and everything like that kind of thing, with the 20 inside. Below that, on the green background in white, it just says ITG Brands LLC, Greensboro, North Carolina, 27420 USA. Pretty base zip code if you ask me. And then below that, we can see the barcode, and FSC compliancy. On the other side, we can see it in green on the white background. It just says underage sale prohibited. And then below that, we just get the Surgeon General warning, which just says smoking by pregnant women may result in fetal injury, premature birth, and low birth weight. Not that that applies to me, as I am not currently a pregnant woman. And yeah, that's all it says right there. Let's take a look at the top. We can see it's just a white background, just says crowns right there in gold, and then we just get 100s right there, right below it in gold as well. And we get the exact same thing on the bottom, just a little bit smaller because there's some numbers over this way, and the Crown's logo itself is covered up by this Indiana tax stamp, as that's where this pack of cigarettes was originally purchased. And yeah, that's really all there is to the packaging. Not much going on, but not a bad look if you ask me. Let's go ahead and get the cellophane all off, and let's go ahead and let's take a look at the pack without the cellophane on it. Does this pack look better with the cellophane off or on? Looks better with it off if you ask me. Quality-wise, this pack is very much that of an average quality. And texture-wise, it's just printed paperboard. Let's go ahead and get this pack all opened up for the very first time. Take a look inside. We can see there's a little bit of a symbol right there just saying that everybody should not be littering, that they should be throwing their cigarette butts away properly. Of course, that's in green on that white. We can see the cigarette insert itself is nothing crazy, just a normal white cigarette insert. And the foil itself is nothing crazy as well, not unique to the brand, just a silver foil that says pull right there. And the foil itself is foily on the outside and more paper and linen-like on the inside, I'd say. How easily does it pull out? Pulls out easily, not the cleanest, but you know, I'll take it. Not too bad. Not the most satisfying pull out by any means, though. I definitely had a more satisfying pull out of your mom last night, but I mean, like, hey, it is what it is. Let's go ahead and take a look at the cigarettes themselves, though. And we can see the cigarettes themselves are a pretty basic look. We get a cork style filter, signifying that this is indeed a full flavored menthol cigarette, and the cork style filter itself has a lot of those light cork dots all over it, definitely more than your average cigarette in my personal opinion. Below the cork style design, though, we can see it just goes to white with 2 green lines right there, just letting us know that this is a menthol cigarette. And then below that, it just goes to normal cigarette paper with horizontal lines going all the way across. Overall, a pretty basic look. Doesn't say Crowns anywhere on this cigarette, but a classic look nonetheless in my personal opinion. And overall, this cigarette is pretty good quality. It's not falling apart in my hands by any means. Smelling it, I am getting, I would have to say, sour spearmint menthol, maybe a little bit of a sort of buttery smell. Yeah, I would say overall I'm getting that of a sort of, I would have to say, like sour, slightly bitter, spearmint menthol scent with, yeah, maybe the slightest bit of a sweet sort of butteriness, maybe a slight nuttiness as well. And that's really all that I'm noticing going on, kind of thing. Kind of smells like a very, like, almost sort of extremely minty, bitter buttermint, I'll acknowledge. Taking a look at the blend, we can see it is very much that of a medium blend. Nothing too crazy going on by any means. There are some lighter aspects going on as well, though, but overall a medium blend. And is there a line of perforation on the filter? It's hard to tell because the lighting out here is not great right now, but what are we thinking? Is there a line of perforation on the filter? Let's take a look. Should have brought my glasses out here. I don't see a line of perforation on the filter. It might be so small that I'm missing it with the lighting right now. But we will find out once I start smoking. It will be exceedingly obvious if there is a line of perforation once I start smoking. But I'm not sure whether there is or isn't as of this point in time. Very interesting, very interesting. Well, alrighty though, I'm gonna go ahead and take a sip of water real quick. And after that, I'm gonna go and get to smoking. Do suppose without further ado, I should probably go ahead and get my lighter out of my pocket. And I do suppose I should probably go ahead and get to smoking one of my Crown's Green 100 menthol cigarettes from the United States and find out just how they are, what they're like, and what I think of them. Without further ado, let's get to smoking, y'all. Yes, sir, you know what I'm saying? And right off the bat, lots of menthol, tons of menthol, it's too much menthol for me. I am not a menthol cigarette smoker, I'll acknowledge. It's just not really my thing. This is definitely not my type of menthol cigarette. When I have a menthol, I like to be able to taste some of the tobacco underneath. Can't really taste any of the menthol underneath. No. Can't really taste any of the tobacco underneath as this point in time. So not quite my thing, I'll acknowledge. But if you like a really heavy menthol cigarette, this might be your speed, just based off of what I'm experiencing initially. Body-wise, the body is pretty dang dense, pretty dang big. Honestly, I am quite impressed by the size of the body, and just taking a look at the filter itself, it does not appear that there is any perforation on the filter. There might be a really tiny line that I'm just not noticing, but I don't believe there is one. Could be wrong, though. Take what I say with a grain of salt. Airflow-wise, the airflow is perfectly fine. Draw-wise, it's very much that of a light, medium draw. Very easy draw, but there's still a satisfying sort of pressure. No, there's still a satisfying sort of restrictedness to the draw that gives it that medium draw. And I think that's both due to the length of the cigarette and due to the lack of perforation, if I had to guess. But yeah, overall, perfectly fine airflow. I'd have to say medium light draw. Not the heaviest draw in the world by any means, that's for sure, but certainly not a satisfying draw. There is a little bit of satisfaction in there. Roughness, smoothness-wise, right now I'm feeling like it's a 4 out of 10. Probably will get a little bit rougher towards the very end, though. And strength-wise, this is definitely a full-flavored menthol cigarette. I'm thinking probably somewhere around 0.8 to 0.9 milligrams of nicotine, somewhere around I'd have to say 6 to 7 out of 4 strength-wise. Due to the extremely get my words a little bit jumbled up. Due to the extremely heavy levels of menthol in this cigarette, that was definitely doing a good job of kind of smoothing my throat just a little bit, making this cigarette a little bit smoother than not. This is definitely smoother than a comparable non-menthol cigarette, if you ask me. And taste-wise, it's nothing particularly special. It's nothing crazy, but it's not bad quality by any means. I'm not getting any sort of chemical taste, any sort of an additive taste. I'm getting a slight bit of a paper taste, but nothing too crazy by any means. And honestly, if you aren't looking for the paper taste, I don't think you're really going to notice it. And taste-wise, overall, I'm very much getting that of a sort of slightly sour, bitter, spearmint, menthol, slightly buttery, like buttermint like flavor just in the very background. Anything else going on? No, not really. Yeah, just sort of semi-bitter. Maybe there's a little bit of like dark chocolate in there. Just the slightest bit, giving us a little bit of bitterness in there. Body is still very big, even as we're getting towards the end. No complaints about that. And taste-wise, I would have to say yeah, kind of that of a semi-bitter, semi-sour, sort of spearmint menthol, slightly dark chocolate flavor with an undertone of like slightly sweet buttermint. And that's very much the flavor I'm getting from this pack of the Crown's 100 cigarettes from the United States. Yeah, nothing too crazy going on. The flavor isn't anything super unique, but for being a budget cigarette that's honestly, I think, just meant to get the job done, this gets the job done. It's nothing crazy. You might be getting a little bit of a paper taste, but no sort of chemical taste, no sort of additive taste, and this is, in all honesty, just a pretty mid-range budget cigarette, both price-wise mid-range and quality-wise and taste-wise and smoking-wise. It's nothing particularly special. It's just a cigarette that gets the job done and provides a menthol flavor. I don't think it's a bad flavor, but it's not my thing, but that's mainly due to the fact that I'm not a menthol cigarette smoker. But this menthol cigarette is also not to my preference as a cigarette smoker in general. I do have menthol cigarettes I like. This is not one of them. It's just, to me at least, okay. It's not bad. It's also not my favorite thing ever, but if somebody handed me one of these, I'd certainly smoke one. I'm gonna go and have another one real quick before the sun goes down, and I'm gonna grab myself a little bit of a thumbnail, I do think. And overall, this cigarette, initially at least, appears to be smoking the exact same as the first one I had, so I can say with certainty that the quality between cigarettes is indeed consistent. Definitely with this one, and as I'm continuing to smoke a little bit more, I am noticing a little bit more of that sort of papery sort of flavor. There's a little bit of burned paper sort of flavor in there, but it's nothing crazy. It's not a particularly big deal, and as I said, if you're not looking for it, I don't think you'll notice it, because the menthol does a pretty good job of covering it up. Airflow-wise, still perfectly fine. Draw-wise, still that of a medium to light draw, but there's still some satisfaction in there kind of thing. And strength-wise, having now smoked one of these cigarettes, I would definitely have to quantify it as being a, I would have to say like a 0.7, or not a 0.7, sorry, some Canadian geese flying over me right now. What was I about to say? I would have to quantify it as being, I'd have to say probably a 6 to 7. Probably more like a 7 out of 10, strength-wise. And I would have to say milligrams of nicotine, probably 0.9 to 1.0 to maybe 1.1. Definitely a full-flavored cigarette. Definitely a cigarette that's getting me a little bit of a buzz. And even though this cigarette does have that strength to it, it does not have too much roughness. It is smoother than not due to that menthol. The menthol is quite heavy. It is quite overwhelming if you're not a menthol enthusiast. Although there certainly are heavier menthol cigarettes out there by any means. And when I say heavier, I'm talking just heavier menthol-wise. There's also heavier menthol cigarettes out there, nicotine-wise as well, though. But I'd have to say like a 4 out of 10 is the right rating to give this cigarette, strength-wise. And taste, am I really noticing anything different from the first cigarette? Not really, not really. The sort of burning paper taste is becoming a little bit more prevalent with this second cigarette, but it's nothing crazy. It's nothing crazy. I am getting a little bit buzzed, though. I'm not gonna lie. I'm getting a little bit buzzed. Well, I think I'm gonna go and take a hit or two more, see if I can notice anything different about the flavor, and then after that, I think I'm gonna go and start covering my final thoughts, even if I'm not done with this cigarette quite yet. Yeah, overall, taste-wise, in my opinion, it is that of a, I'd have to say, slightly sour, bitter, spearmint menthol flavor with a very slight undertone of maybe dark chocolate and a little bit of, and when I say dark chocolate, I'm really talking about like a bitter dark chocolate, I'd say. And maybe, yeah, Yeah. Okay, so yeah, I'd have to say the flavor of the Crown's Green 100 menthol cigarettes from the United States, it's that of a, yeah, slightly sour, bitter, spearmint, menthol, slightly bitter dark chocolate flavor with an undertone of a very slightly sweet, sort of like buttermint, slightly creamy flavor. And that's what I would have to say. Like, it's a little bit of like a buttery, sort of slightly creamy, buttery, buttermint-like flavor in the very background. And that's very much what the flavor of these cigarettes is actually like. Not too much going on. Nothing too much going on. It's just a menthol cigarette gets the job done. That's what the Crown's Green 100s are meant to be, in my personal opinion. They're meant to be a budget cigarette, gets a job done, doesn't taste bad. And while there is, I will acknowledge, just a little bit of an undertone of a sort of burning paper flavor in the flavor of the cigarettes, it's nothing crazy. And if you're not looking for it, you're probably not going to notice it, kind of thing. But these cigarettes get the job done. They certainly are packed full of nicotine, and they certainly don't taste bad by any means. Not the greatest tasting menthol cigarette I've ever had. Certainly not even top 20. But it's a cigarette that works. It's a cigarette that gets the job done. And for that, I respect it. It's, I'm not gonna lie. When compared to most other menthol cigarettes, just exceedingly mid. It's pretty mid. And I'm not saying mid as in it's a bad thing kind of thing. I know a lot of people these days describe mid as being, like, a bad thing. They're like, man, that show is mid. I don't like that show, kind of thing. That's not what I mean when I say mid. When I say mid, I mean it's the medium. It's the moderate kind of thing. It's the cigarette that is just in the middle kind of thing. It is not bad. It's also not really the greatest thing in the world, but it's just mid. And honestly, that's perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with that. It's a cigarette that's just meant to get the job done, and it gets the job done and does it at a reasonable price. Yeah. I'm gonna go and finish off this cigarette, and I'm gonna give you guys my full final thoughts on the pack. Well, what are my final thoughts on the Crown's Green 100 menthol cigarettes from the United States? What do I think of them? Well, overall, it's a pack of cigarettes that personally I would not buy with my own money. One, menthol cigarettes are just not exactly my thing, but when I am going to have a menthol cigarette, I like menthol cigarettes that are to my personal preference, and this one is not that. It's not only not the highest quality cigarette in the world, and that tends to be what I like when I smoke my menthols every once in a while, but it's also just a cigarette that it gets the job done. And that's not what I like for menthol cigarettes. So personally, I cannot see myself buying a pack of these with my own money. If somebody handed me one, though, I would absolutely smoke it without a doubt. But it's not a pack of cigarettes that I would personally purchase myself. But overall, it's a pack that I think has a good place on the market, kind of thing. I think folks who just want a menthol cigarette that works, that just gets the job done, are going to be looking for something like this. And I think this works for that kind of thing. And overall, I can't hate on the Crown Green 100 menthol cigarettes from the United States. I can't hate on them, but I will also not say that I like them, because I don't. Yeah, not a pack that I'd buy with my own money, but it's a cigarette that if somebody handed me one, I would smoke, and I'm sure eventually I will finish off the rest of this pack. But for the moment, I'm giving them a 5 out of 10. I think a 5 out of 10 is deserving. It's just mid. It's not bad. It's not good. It's just very moderate. And I don't think that's a bad thing by any means. A 5 out of 10 for the Crown's Green 100 menthol cigarettes from the United States. When compared to the other varieties of Crowns that I've tried in the past, I do think that this is the weakest one I've tried so far. but it's still not bad. It's just the weakest in comparison to the other ones, which I ended up enjoying more, mainly because they weren't menthol cigarettes. And yeah, 5 out of 10 for the pack I reviewed today. Hope you guys have enjoyed watching this video. If you guys have enjoyed watching this video, of course, make sure to like and subscribe for more content. I have my Instagram, my book, my Patreon, my website, all in the description down below. Thank you so much once again to Mr. Fred Scott for having been kind enough to contribute this pack right here to the channel. To the next one, y'all, stay safe in peace and have a great one. Yes, sir, you know what I'm saying?